Nasty word called AI.
It's actually a very exciting time for brokers.
How is AI helping the brokerage world?
Everything that is AI based within a lender's world is not open to the general public.
I go on my computer and I'm looking up stuff. How is that helping consumers today?
For the consumer, it just means more education.
I'm looking at some of my agents, they're still old school. The new AI on CRMs or on mortgage.
Reaching out through technology, making themselves available, well, that should be table scraps at this point.
Welcome, folks. Welcome back to the Mortgage Den. Today with me, Andrew Shultz from Axiom Innovations. Welcome, Andrew.
Thanks very much.
Today, we're going to talk about this nasty word called AI and automation and digital approval. I mean, we see a lot of it out there. It's driving the stock market, but do we really know what AI is all about? So, Andrew, you're in the industry. How is AI changing the mortgage broker's world today?
Yeah, so first of all, thanks for having me. And I think it's actually a very exciting time for brokers. I think there's been a lot of concern in the broker community around what AI is doing or can do. But I think really what we're seeing, as somebody who provides technology to the industry, is we're seeing that AI is making brokers a lot more efficient. More than anything, it's allowing them to spend more time with their clients, doing the things that matter, providing human advice, human touch, understanding the pain points of the consumer while not being as heavily focused on some of the administrative tasks. So whether that be, managing the intake of an application, whether that be, receiving and tracking documents, analyzing those documents for authenticity, all of these things are now being managed by AI or can be managed by AI, and they're making brokers a lot more efficient. And I think most importantly, giving them time for what's most important, which is the client.
Now, from the consumer point of view, you just mentioned, verifying of documents.
Mm-hmm.
Being a broker in the industry for a long time, there's a lot of pushback from clients. You're asking for the world. You're asking for a pint of blood. Now that they're providing documentation, talk to me, how does AI verify that stuff?
Yeah, so the technology that that's really at play in the most here is what's called OCR, optical character recognition. So if you were to send me a stack of documents, the pint of blood, as you say, we can run that through AI or through OCR now, and we can extract the important parts. If we want to look through, let's say I need 6 months of bank statements, we can actually put those bank statements through AI now and analyze the trends, spot anomalies, verify income documents, make sure that things like a T4 is authentic. So I think from a consumer perspective, really what we're doing, again, this is about cutting down time. This is one of the most stressful parts of the average person's day-to-day, or not day-to-day, but their largest purchase. And going through the process of getting approved is a very stressful process. And the longer you wait, the more you build stress. And so this is the type of technology that's going to really reduce the amount of time that's spent where somebody has to go through those documents and analyze them. If you call a mortgage broker and you check in, if the answer is it's with the underwriter, and they call back the next day and it's with the underwriter, and you call back the next day, it's with the underwriter, that's what we're reducing that period of time right there. And when you can't give a better answer than, hey, it's with the underwriter right now, and I'll get back to you as soon as I have an answer. Once that phone gets hung up, then the stress starts to build. I wonder what's going on with my documents. Is everything going to be okay? So we're going to cut down on that amount of time. I think that's really what's most important.
We're talking from the broker's point of view. Now let's talk from the lender's point of view. You've covered a little bit of it at this point in time, but again, how is AI helping the brokerage world from the lender side? I mean, a lot of them seem to have gone out and either built or purchased their own programming using AI.
Yeah, so I think most importantly, everything that is AI based within a lender's world is not open to the general public. So you'll often hear people talk about, don't put that information on ChatGPT because then it becomes part of public record. So lenders are using their own closed AI systems, but what it's doing is it's adjudicating a file from basically cradle to grave. So as soon as a broker sends that file in some cases, it might not be until the final stamp of approval that goes out the door from the lender end, there might not be a human that needs to touch that file. That's going to be more on what we call on the A-lending side. As soon as you get into alternative lending, a BFS file, you're looking at a world where you still have to have a lot more human interaction with the file, where somebody's going to have to look at all those documents and move numbers around depending on different lender policies. So there's a long way to go, and I don't know, I don't have a crystal ball. I couldn't tell you if we would ever get there fully. But when we get into the alternative lending side of the broker industry, there's still a lot of human touch still on those files.
So it sounds like, as you say, the A banks are programmed using AI to, once a file arrives through the platform that they're dealing with, to be able to pick up certain stats, whether it be an income situation, credit, or whatever. They're able to pick it up, put it maybe running through a matrix, determine whether or not this is a automatic approval, if it meets all the criteria, and then have AI do some authentication of whatever needs to be verified, whether you're looking at income docs or you're looking at the purchase and sale agreement or something along those lines.
Yeah.
They have the capability to sort of, as I say, delve into the computer world, and pick up this information and authenticate it.
Yeah, like on the A side, it's a really the lending requirements are a lot more fixed, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like you said, credit, income. Does the square peg fit in the square hole? And if it does, then the system can very easily, manage that file. It's when you start to look at somebody who is incorporated or a sole proprietor who has written off a certain number of expenses, and can we add these back to income? Can we not add these back to income? And these vary from lender to lender and how these numbers are managed and calculated. And so that's where you need to have that human interaction. Whereas when you're dealing with a T4 salaried employee who has, good credit, stable employment, can provide a couple of pay stubs, and we can prove that those are authentic, all of a sudden we've got a much easier package for AI to manage.
So now we've talked about the brokerage side, we've talked about the lender side. Let's talk about the human side. I go on my computer and I go through one of the AI search engines and I'm looking up stuff. How is that helping consumers today?
For the consumer, it just means more education. And sometimes I wonder personally if having more information is always a good thing, but a lot of the questions that you need to answer, getting back, certain documents from your bank or from your mortgage broker, being able to understand what those things mean, turn these into plain language for me. These are kind of those ChatGPT large language model tools that allow the consumer to distill what might not be familiar language to them into something that they can easily digest. And in a lot of cases, it can guide you a little bit with, hey, here's some of the questions that you may want to ask your lender, or might want to ask your broker, based off of the information that we have here, right? Having the information doesn't necessarily mean you know what questions to ask. And so there's some guidance there as well.
Well, it's strange that you say that because, I went and played around with a little bit before our meeting today. And, I asked a simple question and it gave me the answer. Mm-hmm. What it didn't give me was the prompt to ask another question.
Right.
Right? It looks like it's very specific to what I'm asking.
Right.
And the problem is, if you don't know what you don't know, you don't know what to ask for. Right. So it sounds like AI, can answer the question, but doesn't give you the prompt, as you just said, to ask other questions which are relevant to the question you have. And unless you have the background or the knowledge, you may not be getting the full picture.
Yeah. One of the things that I've got into the habit of doing as an end user to do exactly that is at the end of any prompt that I give it, I'll ask a question or ask it to prompt me to follow up with other things. So have I asked all the relevant questions? Are there any other additional questions that I should be asking? What information am I not bringing to the table in this prompt? And you can actually build that into your prompt and then you'll get a little bit more interaction. And I find, at least personally for me, that's helped a lot.
Back to the broker world again.
Yeah.
I'm looking at some of my agents. They're still old school. They still have accordion folders with clients' information. They're trying to stay in contact. They're trying to stay in touch. The new AI on CRMs or on mortgage platforms, how is that working? And what should customers or consumers expect from brokers in this world?
It's a good question. I think the baseline expectation has gone up. It's no secret that we all have these tools available to us today. And so the consumer has become more savvy, and I think the expectations have gone up. I think baseline expectations are things like having my broker in consistent contact with me based on key milestones. So if I've got your mortgage details, I know the maturity date of your file, I know when you closed on your property, being able to expect that I'm going to receive some type of communication to review where I'm at with respect to my journey through the term of my mortgage? Do we need to look, has my financial situation changed over the last 2 years into a 5-year term? And what does that mean with, the mortgage that I've committed to? Are there options? These are all, I think, conversations that can be prompted based off of the systems that people are using, and getting ahead of the renewal process. We've seen mortgage rates, spike and dip and bounce all over the place. And it's created a lot of, I think, anxiety in the market for the consumer. And so having a broker who is, whether they're picking up the phone or not, but actually reaching out through technology, making themselves available, I think should be, that should be table scraps at this point.
And I mean, we live in a world where, we need to have regular updates.
Yeah.
Right. I know back in the day, a lot of people would hit, do not contact me.
Yeah.
Right. And we would ignore it. And we still do that to some extent for people who are soliciting us stuff that we don't need. But as you pointed out, and we've pointed out in previous episodes, the mortgage investment, the mortgage product, your house, this is probably the biggest ticket item in anyone's portfolio. And understanding what's happening, certainly in the mortgage industry, which has to do with interest rates and new products coming out, having that information, keeps people current. People, whether or not they can do something with it or not, it's up to them, but at least it keeps them informed, keeps them, aware of what's happening out there, and, whether or not they will pick up the phone and call their broker will come down to, what information is sent out to them and what piques their interest.
Right. And I always kind of compare it to, people will spend, hours going through whether it's the grocery flyers or what are the sales. I'm looking for a new pair of shoes and I got to find a great deal, but they won't spend the time reading necessarily reading the material. And the consumer needs to keep their finger on the pulse, I think, to a certain degree. And if somebody has a thirst for that information, the broker should be the place to get that. And I think as long as a broker can provide that information with consistency, then they become that reliable source.
And the AI becomes a targeted mechanism or tool to support that line of communication.
Yeah, I think in this industry especially, I think AI should be looked at as a tool, not a replacement for the broker or the client-broker relationship. The thing that I believe a consumer is looking for more than anything is guidance. I can Google or I can go into ChatGPT and ask what's the best rate, that I can get out there and with which lender is that. Not to say that I can necessarily qualify or that lender will lend to me, but I can get that information. I don't need to call a broker for that. It's the guidance around understanding the product, understanding what are my options, what happens if I need to break this mortgage early. These are not things that are as easily understandable, and so that's where I think the value is.
Look forward into the future, open that crystal ball. What is the downside on depending on AI, both from a broker side and probably from a lender side?
I mean, the downside from a lending perspective, I think, is that each and every lender, I think the playing field is going to even out a little bit more. What may have been a competitive advantage to a lender in the past may no longer be. But on the flip side, I think from the broker's perspective, I think the people that take advantage of AI, this is the massive competitive advantage. Being able to be more efficient with your time, being able to solidify a relationship. A client wants to work with me because of me, and now I have more time to advise that client, to nurture that relationship. Maybe it's to find more clients, right? It's unchaining people from their desk, doing the administrative side of the mortgage business.
Yes.
Which in many cases is the part of the mortgage business that a broker is not as inclined to want to do either, right? They're people.
Yes.
They're great relationship people, and this is freeing up time for them to do that.
Well, Andrew, thank you very much for all that lovely information. I'm hoping my audience will enjoy it and seek the benefit from it. From Nick to Silva at the Mortgage Den, thank you very much, Andrew.
Thank you.
And hope to see you back soon.